I'm Nick Terzo, and you're listening to The Radical. My guest this week again tests the common notions of how to achieve success. Born the son of a sharecropper, leaving the South to serve in the military, and returning to Louisiana to raise a family while working as a carpenter for many decades. While busking in his 60s, he is discovered, as they say, and signed to Fat Possum Records, appearing on America's Got Talent and having his studio albums produced by the Black Keys' Dan Auerbach. Robert Finley joins me this week to speak about his new record, Sharecropper's Son, perseverance, God, and plentiful opportunities happening later in life. Coming up, my conversation with Robert Finley. It's Nick, and the Radical Podcast is now powered in part by Playboy Condoms. At Playboy, they are committed to products that make sexual intimacy safe, playful, and fun for all. That's why they have introduced Playboy Condoms designed for maximum pleasure and safety with unique quality and scent features that exceed international quality standards. Now available at Walmart or Walmart.com. Respect your partners. Hi, Robert. Thank you for being on the show. I'm really excited to speak to you.
Well, thanks for having me, man. It's good to be out and about, even if it's through social media.
Yeah, that's the truth, right? So you have a new record out called Sharecropper's Son.
Yeah.
There are some really remarkable songs on this. And is this your third record?
Well, yeah, that would be the third one that's, kind of been actually publicized. I did one years ago in 99, but it was at a little place called a little studio, Red Top recording studio. It wasn't any no promoters, no connections. It was just a guy had a studio. He was trying to get a start, and I was trying to get a start, and so he didn't charge me, and I, so we both benefited from it, I guess, because I got something I had never had. I got my first actual CD,
That's great. You had an interesting story because, obviously growing up as a sharecropper's son, yes, just like the title of the album. And you're on like the border of Mississippi and Louisiana. Where are you kind of at?
Winsboro, Louisiana is where I was born and raised. And so that's not far from, we've been more like North Louisiana. North Louisiana would be the area that I'm in.
Got it. So, but I mean, close enough to the Delta there, right, where the blues were.
Oh yeah, definitely.
All those guys around.
Yeah. Then then we was, on a station we had back then was out of Nashville. That was the only major radio station, and they played the blues, even though we wasn't allowed to listen to it in our home, but kids always had a way of doing what they wanted to do, and they still do. How they say they're wiser and weaker, but you can tell a kid what not to do and train him, but they gonna be just like Eve on that forbidden fruit. I just gotta taste it. You say don't eat apples from that tree, so I gotta taste it for myself, And so we sneaked and listened to the blues. Yeah.
Right. I mean, but you started kind of in the tradition of gospel, right? Your dad had you in the church, and that's where you began, right?
And I think that has a lot to do with growing up in the church, and it had a lot to do with the morals of the songs you sing, because you don't want to sing nothing that's negative if you you don't mean to sing nothing negative. I put it like that. If you go to if you go to the scripture anywhere, you should be able to bag up what you do. I mean, even though that was just my dad's opinion that this was the devil's music, that was his personal opinion. But if you're quoting the scriptures and the kids sitting there in church, not always because you want to be there, you're there because that's where you're going to be, if you're not on your sick bed. That made the difference. And so you were forced to listen and you pay attention to the words, you know what I'm saying? You pay attention. And you have to believe everything it say, or don't bother believe nothing at all. So there were scriptures that said the earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof, and nothing was made other than by him. And where did it come from? You know what I'm saying? It's just like the forbidden fruit. Everybody want to blame Eve and Adam for what happened in the garden. But if they had been in the garden, then that would have been their choice, and we had to deal with the consequences of that. So,
correct, absolutely.
I mean, even if you went to far as say, it depends. It's good to be religious. It's good to have faith, but it's also good. God gave you a mind of your own, and so it's always good to try that too. And with the scriptures and the stuff that you was forced to learn, and with everyday life, with the problem of adulthood. See, I didn't know we were poor, until way down the line, because we had what we call poor people. There were people that didn't have food. So my dad would have to share our food with them. And my dad would let them go out in the pea patch and just pick them some peas for dinner. And I really couldn't figure that out as a kid, And we only got one field of watermelons. Why is he giving them away, So when things come up that you don't understand, just say for drinking, as a matter of fact, if you want to have your drink of wine. And there'll be somebody that's so holy that would say the wine belonged to the devil. But there's someone that probably didn't go to church, but they've read this word, and the word's saying Jesus turned water to wine. So the first, he turned water to wine, and I'm like, if he turned water to wine, he must have meant for somebody to drink it. He would, he never made no mistakes. It's perfect. So you gotta idolize it yourself to what it means to you. It's not about what somebody else thinks. Don't get me wrong. I'm grateful for my upbringing. I thank God for it, because without it, I don't know where I would be now. Because I have no idea. But
so you kind of exhibited that independent spirit young when your dad
gave you
some money to go. Yeah, but your dad, I like the story where your dad gave you some money to go buy shoes. And what did you do instead?
So, I went and bought me a guitar. I had a $20 bill, and a $20 bill. I was going to get the shoes, and back then you could get a pair of shoes for $12, $15, and still have a few dollars left. So this was my first time to actually buy my own shoes and pick the kind I wanted, as long as I could afford them with $20. But I went and told all my friends, I'm finna go buy my first pair of shoes. So they all walked to town with me to get the shoes. And that was how that happened. But when we got down there, we passed by a auto shop and it had a guitar. I had a red guitar in the window. My favorite color is red. But it had a red guitar in the window. And the guitar was 1995. So back then you could buy a big old piece of bubble gum for a penny. So I said, well, I sure want to get that guitar. And my friend said, man, get it, get it. I said, well, my daddy told me to buy some shoes. And they was like, well, we'll help you mow some yard. We'll help you mow some yard, man. You ought to get that guitar. And that's when I found out at that age, it's not always good to listen to your friends, you know, on the real deal, you know. That was their idea to get that guitar. But we played it all the way home, which was, I don't know, probably a 5-mile walk, country miles, you know what I'm saying? They say country miles and city miles are different, but my car registers the same thing. It don't know the difference. Now, there's a difference between a country block and a city block. Now, a city block might not be nothing but a block, you know, but a country block, you can go a long ways before you get to that next stop sign. So that's pretty much how, you know,
so you get the guitar. I mean, you're kind of like, look, you're in the tradition of gospel. That's what you've known maybe at that point.
Yeah.
And then you get influence. I mean, then you maybe hear Chuck Berry, right? And then maybe you hear Ray Charles. And I mean, does that get you going? I mean,
man,
what sparked it?
We wasn't allowed to play it in the house because we lived in the country deep. But when we moved into town, I was probably about 10 years old then. And when we moved into the community, it wasn't town, it was just a community. When we moved there, then that's when I really started hearing the blues. There was nothing nobody could do about it. There was a local jukebox, a local nightclub, juke joint, and they turned their music up as loud as it would go. And so their church people complained about it, but the only thing they could agree to do was to turn it down on Sunday morning. That they did get them to agree to do, because we would be in church and somebody would walk in the jukebox and in the club and play a record, and you could hear it all over the church, you know. So the house, the juke joint was actually across the street. There was one little block street that was between the juke joint and the church. So the juke decided he wanted to play his music. At that time, was nothing the church could do about it. So all they could do was go over and try to compromise with him. And I remember that. But soon as church was out, he would turn his jukebox on, because he had this attitude: the preacher getting his money, I got to get mine. You know, preacher taking care of his family, I got to take care of mine. So I learned to be, how you say, sometime different, and not always try to go with the crowd. And I guess that's where the peculiar people comes in there, you know. And everything you do, you know, it wind up going right back, actually going back to the Bible in so many ways. But I can always use the Bible to justify my decision of what I've been doing. I've always been able to do that. We wasn't allowed to curse. No way you would curse. But there was a word called a bad word. That's what we call anything that was unholy. You say out, you know, you say damn, that's cussing. You know, that's a bad word. But my auntie was reading the Bible to me. Well, she was reading the Bible, and when I come there, she went to reading it out loud because she was babysitting me. And she said the word hell, and You know, all the time I heard the word hell, if somebody say I'm gonna knock the hell out of you, you know, I didn't know. So I'm thinking that's hard time cussing. But she read it, and I stopped her. And I remember that. I told her, I said, baby, I said, Auntie, you cuss. She said, when I cuss, I said, you said that bad word. And then I said, can I say it? Because, you know, you had to have permission to say it. And she said, yeah, and I said hell. And she told me that wasn't a cuss word. So as soon as I got home, I had to say that word. You know, and I blind out with it. Oh, hell. And my dad jumps up, what did you say? And I was like, man, Daddy, ain't gonna say that wasn't no bad word. And as I explained myself to him that we were reading the Bible and the word was in there, then he came to the conclusion, well, you don't say it. You know, you're not allowed to say it. Because the way, it ain't what you say, it's how you say it. And the tone of voice when I said it, I just said it hard, you know. And so, yeah, that's how I learned how to be a little different. You don't have to be like nobody else, simply because there's nobody else like you. So, you know, I don't know if that makes sense or not, but
it does. So do you get out of your small town? I mean, did you join the military or did you get drafted? It's kind of around Vietnam, right? Or the end of Vietnam?
Right. I'm gonna tell you, to be honest, now this is really true. I had lost a lot of friends in Vietnam. Guys I grew up with, knew about, you know, and they was a little bit older than me. But they came back, you know, the guy that taught me how to tune a guitar up and he got killed in the military, but he got me my first job. His name was Charlie Turner, but he got my first, Charlie Singleton, he got my first job as playing a guitar for a group. And I was the biggest thing for me, but it was a gospel group. But the fact that I got a chance to play for a gospel group was in the right direction for what my dad would visualize for me and support, you know. And so that's how I wound up going in service. There were several guys that we grew up with, me and my brothers, siblings, that went to Vietnam and didn't make it back. So at some point in my life, I just figured I wasted a couple of years. My dad was killed in an automobile accident when I was 17. And, you know, and I'm just getting into manhood where I really needed his, his expertise or his guidance as far as stepping out on your own. So after he got killed in an auto accident, actually I wasn't living with him at the time, but I always had him that I could call and come home to. And for him to not be there no more, there was nowhere else to go. And my mom was, she was struggling. So I decided at the age of 17, I said, I'm gonna do, and I do my thing. And my thing wasn't adding up to be that much. And so I was too old to go home to mama, you know what I'm saying? And too young to really face the world alone. So I came to the conclusion that I joined the Army. And because they said Uncle Sam would make a man out you, So and no more. And so the main thing, I joined the service to take care of my mama, and so I fixed an allotment and stuff to so that she would have money from month to month, and I wasted the rest of it, to be honest. But I made sure that she got an allotment, a portion of my salary, and the rest, I did teenager stuff. I explored. I was first time away from home. I guess you would say I was the prodigal son. If you really want to nail it down, I've been the prodigal son, and so I learned at an early age how friends come and go, and how people are with you when you're up and you're by yourself when you're down. There were records that used to come on the jukebox, say nobody wants you when you're down and out, or everybody loves a winner, but when you lose, you lose alone. It's good to have somebody beside you that when you lose, they'll lose with you. You know what I'm saying? And that's hard to find. I'm blessed to be around, surrounded by people that really do care. And that's when you got people that really do care for you. The way you determine that is, regardless to what your success is or what you get in life, it's the fact that they were there before all that begun, So if they were always there for you, there's no reason. If they were there when you didn't have a dime, there's no reason for them to walk away now, So those are the real friends. But right. In some cases, not very many, hopefully, but in some cases, that friend will become a hater. And in other words, that friend want to be you. And
right.
You don't really have to watch a soap opera to see that. You just watch your day-to-day life. But there's always somebody wanting whatever you got. But the only thing that you can get now that somebody don't want is COVID-19. Nobody gives it. That's about the only thing you can have, and somebody won't try to beat you out of it. You know what I'm saying?
That's the truth. So you come out of the military. I mean, you got to see the world a little bit, right? And
yeah. The military was great for me because it made me the man I am today. Because when I went in the military, I took a guitar, and the sergeant took it. My drill sergeant took it and say, "I don't know what you bring a guitar here. We ain't here. This ain't no party. This is But he took it and put it up in his office and let it sit there. And he kept it because that wasn't what I was supposed to have been functioning on. But they decided to have a graduation party. And they wanted a band for the graduation party. So now they got to give me my guitar back. Because he had told me I wasn't going to get it back until I leave the post, But he gave it to me for the graduation. And so I played at the graduation. They gave me a little plaque. Wasn't nothing but a little plaque saying Outstanding Entertainer of 1974. But it was my first award. It was like, to me, it was like getting a Grammy, So I took it with honor, and it didn't even have my name on it. It just had, because they didn't know who was gonna win, so they couldn't print the name on it. So finally, I put my name on it myself, but I had it in my military record that I did on the plaque. So when I went to AIT, as we call it, the training for my thing, it was in my file that I was, that I won the talent show for the military, the entertainer of the year. And so by it being in there that I won, then my first sergeant, and when we got ready to graduate from AIT, then that's when it came up again. Finley has it in his record that he won this thing in Fort Polk, and now we in Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland, and he says he can probably put together a band. And when the sergeant talked to me about it, I jumped, and I went to looking for musicians that was going to be graduating when I graduated, and everybody that could sing or had a talent of playing something, I got them all together, and they allowed us to get off duty. Well, we were still on duty, but we could leave in the afternoon and go and practice. So that meant everybody was at practice on time. Everything happened strictly on time. There were no, there were no body running late. And this, because you AWOL if you're not where you're supposed to be. So I had the perfect band. If I said 3 o'clock sharp, 2:45, everybody was there. So that's how that went. And I played or put together that band, and when we played there, that went into my military records as being the band director for AIT. So that meant I had basic training and AIT as me being in charge of the band. So then I come home for about 30 days, and then I left going to Germany. And that was supposed to be my long tour, over there. And I was going to do the rest of my time in Germany. But when I got there, I got off the train. It was the first time I ever rode a train, first time I rode a plane. But, it's something about Uncle Sam takes the fear out of you. You got to do it. You just got to do what you got to do, and so what you're told to do. And I was told to get on a plane and go, and you couldn't catch the bus overseas. So I was like, but I flew over there, and I wasn't all about the fright. I guess I had enough faith that the good Lord would take me if he meant for me to go. But when we got over there, I got off the plane on a Friday evening, and my first sergeant, when I reported to duty, he says, just wait and report Monday morning. See, I know you're here. And he told one of the specialists there, say, take him down and get him selling in and take him to the recreation center and show him around the post so he'll know where everything at. So that's what they did. And they took me to the recreation center. They had all the instruments in there, just hanging, and all you had to do was go sign your name and pick the one you want and sign your name and play it. So I checked out a guitar, and I was just playing. And the guy came to me and said, hey, man, where you stationed at? And I told him, I said, I just got here. He said, we got a party tomorrow, a picnic, a company picnic. Say, man, everybody gonna be there. And say, and our lead guitar player just went back to the States. Say, he just got discharged. Went back to the States to get discharged. He said, now we ain't got a guitar player. And he said, will you play with us? I said, man, I'd love to. I said, but I don't know none of y'all stuff. And you saying the show tomorrow? I say, ain't no way we can do this. And he says, no, man, if you play, you just play what you playing now and say, we'll follow you. So we didn't have a rehearsal. It just was the next day was the show. So I played a couple songs, and the guy, he went and checked out a bass guitar, and he played along with me. And so he said, we're going to follow you. We're going to support you. And so he told the rest of the band. Now, they had a couple songs that they were singing, but just so happened I already knew those songs, because they were songs that was popular in the U.S. And so I already just so happened I knew them. Thin line between love and hate, stuff like that. Just melody. The OJs was out. We had some guys. They could really sing, and so they had a good band, but they didn't have a guitar player. And so I sung for them that Saturday. And that's how I met the whole battalion at one time. And that's the greatest thing you can do, is meet everybody at one time when you're going traveling somewhere. Even the same thing now when we go on tour. You walk out on stage, that's 2,000 people, and you might not remember nobody's name, but if you holler out John or Sue or Callan, somebody gonna answer. So it's.
So let's jump ahead a little bit. So you get back home, you raise a family. Acclaim came to you a little bit later in life, right? That's a kind of an understatement. You ended up kind of losing your sight somewhat in like the last 6 years or so, or?
Yeah, it started about 6 years ago, but it wasn't officially until 2015 when I really realized that I had a serious problem. And I had my little pity party. It didn't last long. But one thing about it, if you don't care, don't nobody else care. You know what I'm saying? Now, you want to get help, you got to care. You got to do what you
right.
You got to show some initiative. You got to make people, or if they see you struggling to make it, they'll give you an empty hand. But if you're looking for a hand down or a hand me out, that's not a whole lot of that going on.
Right. And so you use this. I mean, you have great perseverance. You need to still somewhat support your family, right? You have children,
right.
And
yeah.
So you decide to go back to playing.
Well, no. When I got out of the military, I actually started a gospel group with my mother was singing in a group called the Harmony Five, and so I started playing for that group. Basically, because my mother was in it, and she kept asking me to play, and they kept telling her, see if you can get Robert to come. And then I went and I played for her in a group, and we had a good time. So we just started rehearsing kind of regularly, and then we went back because they just didn't have a musician. And so when I started playing for them, then they went back to performing on a regular basis. Of course, they would still perform, but they'd always have to have somebody that was just there to play for them and did not know probably not their music. And sometimes when you got a musician that don't know the music or don't know the song, it causes you more problem than it do good. You'd be better singing it a cappella, because if they don't know the song, they can change the whole outcome of what you're doing. So it's better to do it alone than have someone there that don't know what's going on. And so that was a blast. I played for that group. Then I organized a group called the Gospel Sisters. So I was Brother Finley and the Gospel Sisters, because all the girls were sisters and first cousins. That's why we call it the Gospel Sisters. But we had our own little radio show on Sunday mornings. We would go down to the radio station and perform live. So it was KMAR down in Winsboro. We did that for quite a while until the girls, because they was real young when we started the group, and then as they got grown, they started getting married and moving off, and so that's kind of how that group deteriorated. And everybody kind of moved to Texas and Memphis, different places, and show you how things happen over the years. They all wind up right back where they started from. They all went out and did this and that, and they did good for themselves. But when you get something, you want to take it home. It's good to go home with something positive, than negative. But it's good to be able to go home in any kind of way.
So you go through life back home.
Yeah, back to my hometown.
Your old job. What'd you do?
Well, I'm a carpenter by trade. My dad was a carpenter. He built the house, even the house we was all raised in. My dad built. It's there now. My daughter and my grandson actually still live in it. So it's an old house, because I was, and the lumber is even older because it was built out of used lumber back in the 50s. And so from what I understood, it used to be an old church that my dad and a couple more of the deacons got together and tore down the old church and used it to build a new church. But the old church was so big till they were able to, when they built what they was going to use for the new church, they had enough lumber left to build 3 more houses. So everybody, I think each one of the deacons built them a house. And the reason why I can come to that conclusion, be pretty solid of it, because all 3 of the houses were built just alike. So they got a pattern and they built them a house apiece. But yeah, that's where I grew up. So it was after my first marriage, and then after my second marriage. So I didn't say I gave love 2 scracks. I know scrack 3, I'm out. So I'm not in a hurry to go back across the altar. But me and my second wife divorced, and then I were still doing my carpentry, and then that's when I started to have the sight problem. So now the reason why it was so simple for me to get up and move around the country or move around the world, because it wasn't nobody but me, So I only had one child from the second marriage, that I feel like, and everybody else was grown. So, because I pretty much raised all of her kids too, but at the same time, the last one, the only one that wasn't legally grown. So, but other than after that, man, I had nobody. At the time, he was with his mother, so there were no reason to come home, because there was no one to come home to, And I had a friend that was taking care of my dogs, and all I had to do was call them, check on them and stuff. This little town that I live in, everybody knows everybody, and so it's not hard to. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're not a man of your word, or if you don't do what you say you're gonna do, then you're gonna have problems anywhere you go. But as long as you do what you say you're gonna do, I knew I had friends I could just call home and say, "Hey, man, I need you to do this for me. I need you go down there and take care of this for me. Go down there." And they knew when I got home, I was going to take care of them. So, and everybody would be looking forward to me coming home, because they knew when I come home, the party was on, So, yeah, that was.
And so if you started kind of busking around, is that how you were discovered? I mean,
yeah, I started busting in Helena, Arkansas. That's where I were. Helena, Arkansas. I went up there with a friend of mine that owned a restaurant, and see, I used to sing at this restaurant, and that's how I kept the bills paid when I was diagnosed with the glaucoma. So then I went with him just riding, and he said, "Man, you need to just go and relax and quit worrying about it. Just ain't nothing you can do about it. Just he said, you need to go to Helen and say, they'll love you up there. He said, because they have people out there on the streets that's playing all the time. And he said, and I never, not being arrogant, but he said, a lot of them ain't good as you. And he said, they love you up there. Say, you need to just go. So he told me if I wanted to go, they was going to leave out at 5 o'clock in the morning, be at the back of his restaurant at 5 o'clock. So I to make sure that I didn't oversleep or be late, I got in my excursion, and I just went down there and park, and I watched TV and dozed off until I heard noises, and then I knew they was out there. And I got out and got in the truck with him. I put my suitcase in the RV with the workers, and I got in the truck with him, and we talked on the way up there, and he was telling me, you can't bus, you gotta have a permit to bus, and you gotta be signed up 6 months ahead of time and all. He was telling me all kinds of stuff you had to be done. And I've always had a way of manipulating around a lot of stuff if I get an opportunity to. And I was like, so his daughter heard that they were having a jam session. So this is my opportunity. It was like a jam session that Thursday night. So the jam session meant anybody get up and play with anybody. And so I volunteered for the jam session. And the guy asked me, he said, you got a band? I said, nah. He said, you know any musicians? I said, nah. He said, well, I'll probably get something to play with you. I said, well, I'd rather do it by myself. I said, because if I mess it up, I want it to be my fault, not because somebody else didn't do the right thing. I don't want to have nobody to blame it on. So that's how that happened. And after the guy told me, he says, well, the way I approached him, once I found out who was in charge, that's what I needed to know, was who was in charge of the stage. And so when I found out who was in charge of the stage, I went to him and I told him, I said, man, I know you don't know nothing about me and I don't know nothing about you. I say, but I sure like to rock this crowd. And he was like, what do you mean? I say, I like to perform on this stage. He said, well, what do you play? I told him I play the guitar. And he says to me, you got a band with you? And I was like, no, I'd rather do it by myself. So he said, man, he said, you know what? He said, I normally don't do this. He said, but for you to come up to me and be that bold, he said, I feel like I owe it to you. He said, I'm going to tell you this here. This is a rough crowd. He said, now, you go out there, you either going to make it or you're going to be the laughing stock of the town. He said, now, they won't have no trouble booing you off the stage. I was like, well, what have I gotten into now? But I was determined to do it. So he told me and said, so on the way he introduced me, he said, ladies and gentlemen, here's a guy from Louisiana. His name Robert Finley, and he gonna sing y'all a couple songs. That's all he said, because he didn't want to jeopardize himself. He didn't know nothing else to say. So I started singing the blues, and people started coming, and the crowd was getting bigger and bigger, and I just kept playing it. And at the end of the song, I heard the applauses, and they was in front of me, behind me, and they was all around. And I was like, so the guy, I looked back at him, and he tells me to play another one. So I played another one, and these songs were songs I had written, and that was on the first little album that I ever recorded. But I did put them on my second album. But these little songs were funny. They were funny. If they didn't like the voice, they would get the punchline to the joke, So I sung I'm gonna buy me a bulldog to watch my house when I'm not at home. I ain't seen nothing with my own eyes, but I believe something funny going on, and I'm doing that kind of stuff. And so one of the punchlines was, you got cigarette butts all over the house, and I'm damn near to choke, and you're trying to tell me your mama been over. I know damn well she don't smoke. And the crowd just got, So by that time, people was coming from everywhere to see who's this wise guy. And so after I had did the funny songs and kind of got the town's attention, because you could hear it anywhere in the city limit, people started coming downtown, and people was like coming out the woodworks. They was camping out in the area and stuff, and everyone was coming. So the guy told me, he says, you can sing one more, because all these people that just came, they wanted to see you, so you could sing one more. And I sung that third song, and I think I sung A Change Gonna Come, and that was my chance to practice the vocal, because everything else was basically comedy and trying to get them interested in the guitar and get the crowd's attention. But when I sung A Change Gonna Come, then I think that's when the change really came. So the guy
go ahead, finish that.
Now, the guy that was busted, that was in charge of the busting, and he was over everything was going on in the city, he then tells me I don't need a permit. He says, come down in front of the town had a store set up that they were selling antiques and souvenirs. He set me up in front of it and told me I could play there as long as I wanted to. So it was like 10 o'clock in the morning, and I played till 10 o'clock that night because people were, every time I got ready to stop, another crowd would be just coming up. And the thing were to keep the tip jar being blessed. And when people come up, and now you just drop, they just come up and drop a $20 bill in your tip jar, you feel like you're obligated to play them another song. and that went on all day. And I had a little backpack that I usually keep my cords and stuff in. So I dumped all of them out in a box and put them in the back of the store while I was on I took about a 30-minute break. And I went and got all of my tips and put them in the backpack, and didn't know nobody, so I couldn't trust nobody. So I put them in the backpack, and then I put my coat back over my backpack. So I actually had all my money on my back, but they thought I was taking it in the store, putting it up. So, and then when I got to the hotel that night, and I was like, I cut it, with tips and a few CDs I sold, I had got where I was making $400 or $500 a day, and I was like, I'm gonna do it again tomorrow. And I was next morning at 10 o'clock when they opened up, I was right back in front of the store. As a matter of fact, I didn't even take my equipment out of the store. I just let them locked it up in there and told them I'll see y'all in the morning. But yeah, that's how that happened. And that next day is when the guy, Tim Duffy, I met him. He came up and took pictures and donated to the tip jar, and told me he needed to talk to me after the set. And we exchanged information, but I really didn't think nothing of it because so many people will make you promises and you never hear from them again, so I didn't think nothing of it. But yeah, about a week later they did call, and I did go to the studio, and I did some solo recordings, and they passed it on. Well, they asked me, did I mind if they passed it on and try to get me a record deal, and I told them go for it, and that's when they introduced me to Fat Possum Records. And Fat Possum the guy that owned it, actually him and his wife drove to Bernice to my house, and I came back from the store one day, and they were standing on my porch knocking, and I'm like, so this has got to be something good about this for these people to actually drive from, the Fat Possum is in Memphis, for them to come from Memphis to Bernice, Louisiana, just to talk to me. So that a little light went off. You might have something here, And so after the first record, when they got it set up, I was in blind school trying to learn how to maneuver with what sight I had left, because there's so many things that we take for granted that we need to pay more attention to. So you can do better if you just pay a little more attention to certain things. So they was teaching me what to look for, and I had to get used to turning my head all the way around rather than glancing and keep going. So it was just simple things, if you got to turn your body around, you just turn your body around, but you need to know what's behind you, what's going on. So that's how that happened. But
and so they introduced you. I mean, so you do a deal with Fat Possum.
Yeah, Fat Possum.
And somehow they bring the music to Dan Auerbach, right? Who's in the Black Keys.
Well, what happened were, I found out later, Dan Auerbach, the Black Keys were on the Fat Possum label before they developed their own label. And so that's how they already knew each other. And so Bruce, the guy that had bought Fat Possum Records, Dan was looking for someone to sing the cover songs on a comedy book called Murder Bandit. And it was 4 songs on there, and we had 4 days to learn, to learn the songs and sing them. And I don't know, because when you really want to do something bad enough, you hang in there with. And we did the songs in a day, really. We did all the songs in a day, and we went back and they changed a little music or something, the musicians and stuff. But I actually did the vocal that day. And so I had 3 more days in Nashville with nothing to do. And that's when Dan decided, hey, you sung those 4 songs so quick on the book, how would you like to do an album? And, it was like a once-in-a-lifetime thing, so why not go for it, get it while you can. And so that was the main song that was on the album, Get It While You Can. That was the first one that I think that we recorded. And so we did the album. We did the whole album in those 3 days. And I still had another day out there in the city. So we went to looking for album covers, a place, to we went photo shooting, in other words, just trying to find the perfect album cover. But everything went together so fast till it wasn't really work. It wasn't work at all.
He put you together with some amazing musicians.
That's what I said.
Some amazing studio cats right there.
Now, everybody, when we took our first lunch break and sit down and talk, everybody was excited, and everybody was kind of trying to talk to me at one time, at the same time. So it really wasn't making a whole lot of wasn't getting a whole lot of sense of it, but I could tell everybody was enjoying the recording. That was the main thing. So when we did that, they knew, and I got to find out they had played for every major artist that I really had, admired. I'm a big fan of Al Green, they played for Al Green. You know, they wrote songs for Al Green. You know, Aretha Franklin was my number one female artist at that time, and they played on her songs. They wrote her songs. So when you're in the room with the best, it brings out the best in you. Because the first thing, I'm not worthy to even, whoever would have thought that I would be in the studio with all these famous people, you know, that people done retired from what I'm dreaming of trying to do. You know, and they tired of doing it, you know. So, but when they got to telling me how it worked and this and that, and they kind of just took me. I'm 67 years old. I was 60. I think I was 63 at the time, and I was the youngest person in the studio. You know, the new kid on the block. Besides Dan, and we had one other young man. I can't call his name, but he was from California, and he was a hell of a keyboard player. You know, it was awesome, and with him and Bobby Woods sit down across from one another, you don't know. You can't help but move. You know, the music will make you move. You know, even if you don't like the words, even if you don't like the singer, when they hooked up, your feet gonna automatically pat. So I'm in the studio with all these great musicians, world known, done traveled all over the world. Now I'm thinking this is great. Then next call I get, they actually want me to go on tour with them, and they done come out of retirement and went on tour. They said, you know, all the guys decided, let's go on the road one more time, you know, and because they had quit doing that, and we was having so much fun in the studio, they wanted to do it. We played for a liquor distributor, which I guess I'd say the name was Jim Beam Liquor, and by the time they called me to the stage, I was full of that Jim Beam. So. And that was the first time that we went to New Orleans too, and did a thing in the back alley there. But it was exclusive. The only people was allowed to the show were reporters, or people that owned record stores, and you know, trying to make sure that we got the record in the stores and stuff on time.
So industry types, yes.
Yeah, and so I killed him that night, and so Dan took me on but he didn't let me open up for him. He would do his own show, then he would call me up as a special guest, which was an honor, you know, to be in the middle of his show. And he called me up, and I'll sing 2 or 3 songs, and I'll be out of there, and then people were waiting for my record to come out. So it was really just a promotional thing that I went on the tour with him, so that everybody was looking forward to the record coming out. And but they was so excited that they couldn't wait. They was gonna, everybody was willing to get behind it because they loved it. And so when we did that thing in Jackson, it was more like the public. I mean, when we did the thing in Tennessee at the liquor brewery, I don't know exactly where it was at, but we did it there. Then they kind of just gave me. They even special made me a bottle of Jim Beam with my name engraved in the glass, and that was an honor. They engraved my name in gold on a fifth of liquor, so I got a chance. That was the first time I saw my name in gold. Then Dan decided to go on the East Coast and the West Coast. So we went on the East Coast, and everywhere we went, I was getting the same results. I was getting the standing ovations and my record sales. We couldn't keep enough vinyls or CDs. I was selling out of everything, and fast as I could get it. And so at some point, no matter how much you love your elementary teacher, sometimes when time comes, you still gotta leave them go to high school. So that's the way I look at with these recordings, with these studios and managements, because I started with the Music Maker Foundation, and they introduced me to the Fat Possum cream. They introduced me to the Dan Auerbach team, and so it's kind of the same thing, like going through school. You go from kindergarten to grade school to high school, and then at some point, if you really want to be all you can be, you got to go to college. So I'm hoping I'm in college now.
I think you're beyond college. You may be in graduate school now, beyond college.
But it's been a fun ride.
It's fantastic. It proves that later in life, man, you can still have an amazing ride and have another chapter. And you've proven that. You've got your perseverance. You've got your talent. Robert, thanks for doing this with me. His new record is Sharecropper's Son. It's produced by the world famous Dan Auerbach of the Black Keys. It's a fantastic record full of soul and life. And Robert, I'm so happy for you. Congratulations. Everyone needs to see this man live, is what we all need to do, is see you live. So,
well, thank you so much. Thanks. I'm looking forward to getting back out there. It's like almost a year and a half since we toured and did what we love to do. But I'm trying to take the right steps, because I don't want to endanger myself.
Yes.
And I don't want to be the cause of my fans being endangered. So I'm gonna let the government and the country make the call, and then when it's safe to be back out there, I'm like a horse in the stall. I'll just open the gate and let me finish running this race.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing you out there, my friend. Trust me. So stay healthy. Thank you for doing the show. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. You have a great one. Bye-bye.
That's our show this week. We thank our sponsor, Playboy Condoms, for supporting these episodes. To follow what's happening with this podcast, you can go to theradicalpod.com. You'll find past episodes, show notes, and even merchandise such as t-shirts and hats. Also, I encourage you to follow and rate us on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Also, please follow us on social media, The Radical Pod, where we reveal more about upcoming guests. Thanks for listening and spreading the word.